After saying, "You're not my father," the girl returned years later. Wealthy and thankful, the colony of Kestrel 9 lay scattered across the rocky plains of the planet Zephyria. Harsh winds whipped across jagged cliffs, and the sun's pale light barely touched the valleys below. Human settlers had built small homes, workshops, and farms here, fighting against the planet's stubborn hostility. Life was never easy on Zephyria, but the people were proud and hardworking. Among them was Commander Halen, a man known for his strength, wisdom, and unyielding discipline. He had been a father to many, a mentor to the young, and a guiding hand for the colony through countless challenges. Yet none of his achievements mattered to one person more than his adoptive daughter, Leora. Leora was 15, with sharp green eyes and a fiery temper. She had grown up under Halen's watchful gaze, learning survival skills, engineering basics, and the responsibilities of being part of a colony. But unlike other children, Leora's spirit could not be tamed. She wanted freedom, adventure, and the chance to make her own decisions. On that particular day, the wind had a sharper bite than usual. Halen was in the workshop, inspecting a broken drone when Leora stormed in. Her hair, dark and tangled, whipped across her face as she slammed the door. "I can't do this anymore," she shouted. "Everything is rules, rules, rules. I can't breathe here." Halen looked up from the drone, his brow furrowed. "Leora, calm down. What's wrong now?" "Wrong? You call it wrong. You don't understand me at all," she yelled, her voice echoing in the small room. "I'm not like the other kids. I want to see the stars, to explore, not stay here, fixing broken machines or obeying orders all the time." Halen put down the drone carefully. "I do understand. That's why I've taught you how to survive out there. But you are still young and the colony needs you. You can't just leave in anger." Leora's face twisted. "Leave? You wouldn't even call me your daughter. You're not my father." The words struck Halen like a bolt of lightning. For a moment the workshop was silent, except for the hum of machinery. His hands shook slightly as he tried to find the right words. "Leora, that's not..." But she didn't wait to hear him. She turned sharply, the floorboards creaking under her boots, and ran out into the cold wind. Dust and debris swirled around her as she disappeared down the rocky path toward the colony's edge. Halen sank into a chair, his heart heavy. He had faced storms, failed missions, and dangerous creatures, but nothing had ever hurt as much as a child rejecting him. His chest tightened, and he stared at the empty doorway, feeling a deep emptiness. Meanwhile, Leora ran. She ran past the workshops, past the small houses where neighbors shouted after her, past the farms where crops struggled against the harsh soil. She didn't stop until she reached the cliffs overlooking the dark, swirling valleys below. The wind tore at her clothes, her hair, her face. Yet she felt free. For the first time she was away from rules, away from responsibilities, away from a father who didn't understand her. She looked up at the sky, at the pale sun struggling to shine through the clouds. She imagined the stars beyond, countless worlds waiting to be explored. "I'll show them all," she whispered to herself. "I'll prove that I don't need anyone telling me what to do. I'll survive. I'll be great." Back in the workshop, Halen sat for hours, staring at the tools and machines he had spent years building. His mind replayed every memory with Leora, teaching her to fix engines, showing her the constellations, laughing together in the rare sunny moments. Each memory felt like a dagger now, reminding him of the loss he hadn't expected. By nightfall, the colony was quiet. The settlers returned from their daily work, the fires burned low, and the wind howled like a lonely spirit. Halen remained in the workshop, refusing to sleep. He knew Leora had left the colony, perhaps for good, and he knew he had to let her go. Yet, deep down, he hoped she would return. For Leora, the night was a mix of fear and excitement. She found shelter in a small, abandoned storage shed near the cliffs. It wasn't comfortable, but it was enough to keep her safe from the cold Zephyrian night. She ate a small portion of rationed food she had grabbed from the colony on her way out. As she ate, she thought about the stars she had seen through the telescope at the colony. "I'll reach them someday," she promised herself, tracing a finger across the dusty floor as if drawing a path to the heavens. "I'll go further than anyone else, and maybe I'll come back when I'm strong enough." The first few days were the hardest. Leora had no real plan, only determination. She scavenged for food, collected water from the limited streams, and slept in whatever shelter she could find. Every night she kept watch on the skies, imagining herself aboard fast starships, navigating through asteroid fields and unknown worlds. Even though she was alone, her mind remained sharp. She remembered Halen's lessons: how to repair machinery, how to assess risks, and how to survive when resources were scarce. She put these lessons to use, turning scraps into tools, creating makeshift traps for small creatures, and rationing her supplies carefully. But the emotional weight of leaving home began to press down. Sometimes, when the wind howled too loudly, she felt tears streaming down her cheeks. She missed the warmth of the colony fires, the familiar faces of neighbors, and even Halen, the man she had shouted at and called not her father. She hated herself for missing him, for feeling vulnerable. On the seventh night, as she stared at the stars through a crack in the shed's roof, she made a decision. "I will leave Zephyria," she said aloud, her voice firm despite the cold. "I will see the universe. I will learn. And I will return, not as a scared girl, but as someone who can make a difference." Little did she know, the first step of her journey would take her farther than she imagined. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with both wonders and threats. Yet Leora's courage, her intelligence, and her stubborn spirit were stronger than fear. She would face challenges that would test her limits, but she would survive. Because that was what humans did. They adapted, they endured, and they thrived. Meanwhile, back at the colony, Halen began to prepare. He organized patrols along the cliffs, hoping to find her. He contacted neighboring settlements, asking if anyone had seen a young girl with green eyes and dark hair. But he also knew, deep inside, that Leora needed to find her own path. Sometimes letting go was the hardest thing a parent could do. The weeks passed. Leora learned to navigate the terrain, avoiding dangers and finding resources. She began to document her findings, sketching maps of the nearby cliffs, valleys, and hidden caves. Each night, she added to her imaginary star charts, marking constellations she hoped to visit one day. Though she was young and alone, there was a fire in her heart that could not be extinguished. Every challenge she overcame strengthened her resolve. Every obstacle taught her something new. And every moment away from home reminded her of what she was fighting for: freedom, adventure, and the chance to become someone extraordinary. And so, under the pale Zephyrian sky, the story of Leora's journey began, a story of courage, growth, and the indomitable human spirit. A story that would one day bring her back to the father she had once rejected, not as a child, but as someone who had conquered the universe in her own way. The wind on Zephyria had become a familiar companion for Leora. She had learned its moods and patterns, understanding when it would roar like a wild beast and when it would soften like a whisper. Yet, she knew her time on the harsh planet was limited. The stars she had dreamed of were calling her, and she could no longer stay hidden among the cliffs and abandoned sheds. After several weeks of preparation, Leora made her way toward the colony's old shuttle hangar. It had been abandoned for years, left behind when the settlers prioritized planetary construction over interstellar travel. But Halen had taught her well. She knew the shuttle's systems, the energy conduits, and the basic navigation controls. The small ship had scratches and dents, yet it still held the promise of adventure. Her heart pounded as she climbed into the cockpit. Her fingers trembled slightly as she flipped switches and adjusted levers. She took a deep breath, recalling everything Halen had taught her about survival and mechanics. The engines roared to life, a sound that filled her with both fear and excitement. "Goodbye, Zephyria," she whispered. "I will return someday." With careful control, Leora guided the shuttle through the rocky terrain and into the open sky. The atmosphere pushed against the craft, but she maneuvered skillfully, remembering simulations and schematics she had studied. Soon, the colony became a distant cluster of lights on the planet's surface, and the stars opened above her like a glittering ocean. For the first time in her life, Leora felt the universe truly around her. She had left the rules, the arguments, and the familiar behind. Here, in the vastness of space, she could choose her own path. Yet freedom was not without danger. Her first destination was a nearby trade station orbiting a mining planet. She needed supplies, fuel, and information about interstellar routes. The station was bustling with activity. Merchants, travelers, and engineers from countless human colonies. Leora's small shuttle drew attention as she docked, but she quickly learned to navigate the crowds with a mixture of charm and confidence. At the supply counter, a gruff merchant looked her over. "You're far from home, little girl," he said. "Where are you headed?" "I'm not sure yet," Leora admitted, hiding her nervousness. "I just want to see the universe." The merchant raised an eyebrow, then shrugged. "Brave. Or foolish. Depends on what you find out there." Leora purchased rations, spare energy cells, and a few technical tools she might need for repairs. She also listened carefully to conversations, picking up details about trade routes, pirate activity, and unexplored sectors. Every piece of information was a piece of her survival puzzle. Her next challenge came almost immediately. Leaving the station, she entered a dense asteroid field on her way to the next system. The rocks floated silently in the black void, massive enough to crush her shuttle if she miscalculated. Her hands flew over the controls, adjusting speed and trajectory, predicting the movement of each asteroid. A sharp impact could destroy the engines, and even a small collision could leave her stranded in the cold emptiness of space. Hours passed as she weaved through the field. Every decision required precision. Sweat ran down her face, but her mind was clear and focused. Finally, she emerged on the other side, exhausted but triumphant. She allowed herself a small smile. Each challenge she overcame made her stronger, more confident. Leora continued her journey through the human colonies, taking jobs as a mechanic, pilot, and sometimes as a courier. She discovered that her intelligence, quick thinking, and adaptability made her invaluable. On one mining station, she repaired a failing life support system just in time, earning the gratitude of the entire crew. On another transport ship, she navigated through a dangerous plasma storm, saving cargo and crew alike. Through it all, she never stopped learning. She studied navigation systems, alien languages, and advanced engineering techniques. Every failure became a lesson. Every success became proof that she could survive on her own. Yet, even as she thrived, she carried a quiet weight in her heart. Thoughts of Zephyria and Halen surfaced often. She wondered if the colony was safe, if Halen still thought about her, or if she had burned the bridge to her past forever. Sometimes, she felt guilty for leaving, but she reminded herself that this journey was necessary. She had to grow strong, independent, and capable before she could ever return. Months passed. Leora's reputation began to grow. Traders spoke of a young woman with remarkable skill, daring, and ingenuity. Some called her a genius. Others whispered that she was reckless. Leora didn't mind. Recognition was not her goal. Survival and knowledge were. One day, while traveling between two trading stations, she encountered a distress signal from a small colony under attack by rogue drones. The message was automated, weak, and almost lost in the static of space. Without hesitation, Leora altered her course and headed toward the colony. She arrived to find the settlement's defenses failing. The rogue drones, once designed for construction and maintenance, had been corrupted by a virus and were now attacking indiscriminately. Buildings were damaged, power grids failing, and the people inside were terrified. Leora acted quickly. Using her knowledge of robotics and engineering, she hacked into the drone's control systems. It took hours of careful manipulation, calculating every command to avoid further destruction. Finally, she regained control, deactivating the rogue machines and saving the colony from disaster. The settlers were awed and grateful. They offered her a permanent place among them, gifts, and even a position of authority. But Leora politely declined. "I can't stay," she explained. "There's too much to see, too much to learn, but I promise I'll never forget your courage." That night, as she slept aboard her shuttle in orbit, she looked out at the stars. She thought about the young girl who had shouted at her father, who had run away from home, and who had once been afraid of failure. That girl seemed so far away now. She had grown, adapted, and faced dangers that would have terrified her younger self. Yet the universe still held mysteries, dangers, and wonders. Leora knew that her journey was far from over. She had learned to survive alone, to trust her mind and instincts, and to face fear with courage. But she also realized that every experience, every challenge was preparing her for something greater, something she could not yet see. Some nights, she allowed herself a quiet thought of Halen. She imagined his face, lined with worry, his hands steady and strong, the voice that had once scolded her yet guided her. She wondered if he ever thought of her. She wondered if he forgave her words, her anger, her rejection. "I'll go back one day," she whispered to the stars. "And I'll make you proud. I'll show you what I've become." Her journey continued across sectors, through bustling colonies and silent voids, past dangers and discoveries. She navigated asteroid fields, helped stranded crews, and repaired failing stations. Every challenge tested her body, mind, and spirit, but she adapted, endured, and thrived. Through it all, one truth became clear: humans could survive anything. Not because they were the strongest, the fastest, or the smartest, but because they never gave up. Leora embodied this spirit. She had left home as a frightened, angry girl. She had faced the void alone and had begun to master it. As she charted a course for a distant, uncharted system, Leora smiled. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but it was also full of opportunity. And she was ready. Somewhere in the distance, beyond stars and planets, beyond storms and silence, her future awaited. A future that would eventually lead her back to Zephyria, back to Halen, and back to the home she had once rejected. For now, though, she was alone, free, and unstoppable. And in that freedom, Leora's journey truly began. Years passed since Leora had left Zephyria. The young, fiery girl who had shouted at her father was gone. In her place stood a young woman of remarkable skill, sharp intellect, and unyielding courage. Leora had traveled from one colony to another, from one system to the next, always seeking knowledge, opportunity, and ways to test herself. Her reputation had grown quietly but steadily. Traders, engineers, and station commanders spoke of a brilliant young woman who could repair almost any machine, navigate any dangerous path, and survive where others would fail. Her name became a whispered legend among human colonies, a girl who had started with nothing but determination and had built herself into someone extraordinary. Leora had learned quickly that survival alone was not enough. To truly explore the universe, she needed resources, influence, and power. She began working with traders and investors, offering her skills in exchange for support. Her work repairing damaged ships, hacking rogue systems, and salvaging lost cargo proved invaluable. Every job earned her not only wealth but also contacts and allies. She started small, a workshop in a busy orbiting station, barely larger than a closet. Yet even here, she made a difference. She redesigned old propulsion systems, repaired energy cores, and improved communication networks. Her ingenuity attracted attention. A wealthy merchant offered to fund her next project, an advanced shuttle capable of interstellar travel and cargo delivery. Leora accepted, seeing this as the first step toward greater ambitions. With her new shuttle, she explored distant, uncharted systems. She discovered planets suitable for habitation, mapped safe asteroid routes, and salvaged ancient human technology lost in past colonization efforts. She traded these findings with other colonies, earning not only wealth but the respect of scientists and explorers alike. But Leora's ambitions went beyond profit. She began creating innovative technology that could change the lives of settlers on hostile worlds. She developed energy-efficient habitats, advanced life support systems, and automated farming drones that could survive harsh planetary conditions. Her inventions were quickly adopted across multiple colonies, and she became a symbol of human ingenuity and hope. Even as she rose in status, Leora never forgot her own journey. She remembered the hunger, the cold nights on Zephyria, the fear and uncertainty of her first solo flight. These memories fueled her determination. She wanted to make the universe safer, easier, and more welcoming for those who would follow, just as she had wished for herself years ago. Her life was not without challenges. In one system, a rival company tried to sabotage her operations, believing that a young woman could not succeed where they had failed. Leora faced failing engines, corrupted data, and near starvation of resources. But each obstacle was met with her ingenuity and resilience. She repaired what others thought impossible, outwitted her competitors, and emerged stronger than before. Another challenge came from the rogue pirate gangs operating in the outer sectors. These groups threatened traders and colonies alike, taking whatever they wanted and leaving destruction in their wake. Leora encountered them on several occasions, sometimes running, sometimes negotiating, and occasionally outsmarting them entirely. She learned to navigate both diplomacy and danger, understanding that survival was as much about human relationships as it was about skill. Amid her rising fame and fortune, Leora never lost the quiet longing for home. Zephyria, Halen, and the colony she had left behind were never far from her thoughts. She followed news of the sector, tracking the safety and progress of her home colony. Sometimes she allowed herself brief pangs of guilt, wondering if Halen had forgiven her words, if the villagers remembered her, if she had truly burned all bridges. One day, while inspecting a newly acquired habitat module in a bustling human colony, Leora received a message that would change everything. The energy grid on Zephyria, which powered the colony's farms and living quarters, was failing. Reports indicated that a massive energy storm threatened to destroy the colony's infrastructure. Without immediate help, the settlement she had once called home could collapse. For a moment, Leora felt panic and hesitation. The universe was vast and she had responsibilities across many systems. Yet, as always, her courage and determination overcame fear. She made a decision. She would return. Not as the girl who had run away in anger, but as someone capable, prepared, and strong enough to make a difference. The journey to Zephyria was not easy. Leora navigated through unstable sectors, asteroid belts, and regions of dense radiation. Each challenge required precision, intelligence, and courage. But she faced them with confidence, her mind sharpened by years of experience. For the first time in a long while, she felt the familiar pull of home, an anchor in the vast sea of stars. As she approached Zephyria, the planet looked both familiar and strange. The rocky cliffs, the scattered settlements, the pale sunlight, they were the same, yet different from the memories she had held for years. The colony was smaller than some thriving world she had seen, but it was resilient, and it needed her help. Leora landed near the central hub, stepping out of her shuttle into the harsh wind she had once known so well. The villagers were astonished. Whispers spread quickly. The girl who had left in anger had returned, grown, and equipped with knowledge and technology beyond anything they had seen. She moved quickly, assessing the failing energy grid, analyzing the infrastructure, and directing repairs. Her years of experience allowed her to work efficiently, turning chaos into order. She coordinated local engineers, salvaged damaged materials, and implemented advanced solutions to stabilize the colony's systems. Hours turned into days, but under Leora's guidance, the energy grid began to recover. The colony's farms resumed their automated operations, life support systems regained stability, and the people's spirits lifted. They watched in awe as the girl who had once shouted at Halen transformed into a savior. Halen, who had been monitoring the situation, arrived to witness her work, his eyes filled with pride and a mixture of disbelief. The girl he had thought lost had returned, not as a child in need of guidance, but as someone capable of saving lives and shaping the future of the colony. When the repairs were complete, Leora turned to Halen. Her voice was calm, confident, yet filled with emotion. "I've learned a lot since I left," she said. "I've faced the universe and it has taught me more than I could have imagined, but I've never forgotten this place or you." Halen felt a surge of emotions, relief, pride, forgiveness, and love. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've become someone incredible," he said quietly. "I'm proud of you, Leora, more than words can say." For the villagers, Leora became more than a legend. She was proof of human resilience, ingenuity, and courage. She showed them that even in the harshest environments, humans could thrive and overcome challenges beyond imagination. That night, under Zephyria's pale sky, Leora stood on the cliffs she had once climbed as a girl. She looked at the stars, the same ones she had dreamed of years ago. She realized that her journey was far from over. The universe still held wonders, challenges, and opportunities, but she had grown strong enough to face anything. And in that strength, she had found not only her own purpose, but also a path back to the home she had once rejected. The shuttle descended slowly toward the Zephyrian colony. The familiar cliffs and rocky plains came into view, yet they looked smaller from above. Leora's heart raced, not from fear, but from a mixture of anticipation, pride, and the memory of the girl she once had been. Years had passed, and she had changed. She was no longer a child fleeing in anger. She was someone who had faced the universe and returned stronger. The landing pad was still intact, though worn from years of harsh weather. Villagers had gathered nearby, whispering excitedly as the shuttle's engines powered down. Many of them remembered the small girl who had vanished in anger. Now, they saw a confident, capable young woman step out, carrying the weight of experience and wisdom in her calm eyes. Halen waited near the edge of the landing pad. He had not slept much, his mind filled with worry and hope. He watched as Leora stepped down, noting how she moved with purpose and confidence. The years had changed her in ways he could not have imagined. He took a deep breath, preparing for the moment he had both longed for and feared, their reunion. Leora approached slowly, not because she was afraid, but because she wanted this moment to be meaningful. She stopped a few meters away, looking at Halen with a mixture of respect and gratitude. The wind carried memories of the past, laughter, arguments, lessons learned, and mistakes made. "Halen," she said softly, her voice steady. I'm sorry for what I said when I left." Halen's eyes filled with tears. The words she had shouted so many years ago, "You're not my father," had haunted him for a long time. But hearing her apology now and seeing the woman she had become filled him with overwhelming pride. "You've grown into someone incredible," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I never stopped hoping you would return. I'm proud of you, Leora. You've done more than I could have imagined." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried the silence, a silence filled with understanding, forgiveness, and love. The colony watched in awe, realizing that this was not just a reunion of two people. It was the return of hope, inspiration, and the embodiment of human resilience. Leora's attention turned to the colony itself. She walked through the central hub, observing the repairs she had helped direct days ago. Energy grids hummed steadily, farms were thriving again, and life support systems operated without interruption. Her heart swelled with pride. This place, once small and fragile in her eyes, had endured, and now, with her guidance and experience, it could thrive like never before. The villagers gathered around, curious and eager to meet the young woman who had returned. Many asked questions, wanting to know about her travels, the dangers she had faced, and the knowledge she had gained. Leora answered patiently, sharing her experiences in a way that inspired rather than intimidated. She told stories of distant stars, alien landscapes, and the challenges of interstellar travel, but always brought the lesson back to human courage and ingenuity. One of the colony's engineers, a middle-aged man named Taryn, approached her. "I've never seen anyone move through a failing system the way you did," he said. "How did you stay so calm?" Leora smiled gently. "I learned that fear is natural, but it doesn't have to control you. Every problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need to find it step by step." Her words resonated deeply with the villagers. They had faced countless hardships on Zephyria, from storms to equipment failures, but few had ever seen someone handle danger with such calm intelligence. Leora became a living example of what humans could achieve when courage, knowledge, and determination combined. As the days passed, Leora worked closely with the colony. She implemented long-term improvements, installing energy-efficient habitats, better irrigation systems, and communication networks that connected the settlement to nearby colonies. She taught the villagers advanced techniques for farming, engineering, and resource management. But her focus was never just on technology, it was on people. She encouraged young settlers to explore, to ask questions, and to never fear failure. She shared her own story, how she had left in anger, traveled the stars, faced countless dangers, and grown stronger for it. Her words inspired hope and ambition in every listener. One evening, as the sun set behind the jagged cliffs, Leora and Halen sat together on the edge of the landing pad. The wind had softened, and the sky glowed with shades of pink and gold. For a moment, they simply watched the horizon, letting years of separation and hardship settle into quiet understanding. "I was angry when I left," Leora admitted. "I didn't understand everything you were trying to teach me, but I've learned so much since then. I needed to find myself out there." Halen nodded. "I know, and you have. You've become someone remarkable, Leora. I'm proud, not just because of what you've accomplished, but because of who you are." They sat in silence for a few moments, letting the wind carry away the last remnants of resentment. Leora realized that forgiveness, both given and received, was one of the strongest forces in the universe. It allowed humans to move forward, to grow, and to rebuild what was once broken. The villagers celebrated her return with a small festival. Fires were lit across the plains, music played, and people shared food and laughter. Leora moved through the crowd, greeting each person with warmth and humility. She had returned as a savior, a mentor, and a symbol of hope, but she remained humble, remembering the hardships that had shaped her. During the celebration, a young girl approached Leora, eyes wide with curiosity. "Will I ever see the stars like you?" she asked. Leora knelt, looking into the girl's eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "You can do anything if you work hard, stay brave, and never stop learning. The universe is waiting for you." That night, Leora returned to the cliffs where she had once shouted at Halen in anger. The stars stretched endlessly above her, just as they had all those years ago. But now she felt a deep connection to the stars, to Zephyria, and to the people she had once left behind. She realized that true strength came not just from surviving challenges, but from understanding the bonds that made survival meaningful: family, friendship, and community. Halen joined her quietly. They stood together side by side, watching the stars. No words were needed. The years of separation, pain, and growth were understood in a shared glance. They had both changed, both grown, and both learned the value of resilience, forgiveness, and love. Leora's return was not just a personal triumph, it was a turning point for the colony. With her knowledge, skills, and guidance, the settlers were now equipped to thrive in one of the harshest environments humanity had faced. They had witnessed the embodiment of human ingenuity and determination, and they had been inspired to push themselves further than ever before. The next morning, Leora began planning the long-term future of Zephyria. She worked with Halen and the colony's leaders to develop strategies for sustainable growth, resource management, and exploration. Her experience traveling the stars became a blueprint for training new generations of settlers, ensuring that Zephyria would not only survive but flourish. Through it all, Leora never forgot the lessons she had learned on her journey. She understood the importance of courage, adaptability, and intelligence. She understood the value of community and the bonds that held people together in the harshest conditions. And most importantly, she understood that true human strength was not just in individual achievement, but in helping others rise alongside you. As Zephyria began to thrive, Leora realized that her journey had brought her full circle. The girl who had left in anger had returned as a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of hope. She had faced the universe alone and had come back stronger, not just for herself, but for the people she loved. And in that moment, under the endless sky of her home planet, Leora knew that the most important journeys were not only those across the stars, but also the journey back to where it all began, to the people who had shaped her, and to the place she would always call home. The Zephyrian sun rose slowly over the cliffs, painting the rocky plains with soft golden light. The colony hummed with life, more vibrant than it had ever been. Homes glistened under new solar panels, farms thrived with automated irrigation, and energy grids operated without interruption. Children ran freely along the paths, laughing, learning, and dreaming, just as Leora had once done. Leora stood at the edge of the central hub, looking over the bustling settlement. She had returned to Zephyria not just to survive, but to build something lasting. The girl who had shouted at Halen all those years ago was gone. In her place stood a leader, a creator, and a mentor. She had faced the universe alone, conquered dangers, and returned not only stronger but determined to leave a mark that would benefit generations. Halen joined her quietly, his eyes reflecting the pride he had long held in silence. "You've done more than I could ever imagine," he said. "Zephyria has grown beyond my dreams." Leora smiled, her gaze still on the colony. "We did it together," she said. "I've had experiences out there in the stars, but this is what matters. People home, the future we can build." The work ahead was never-ending. Leora and Halen began organizing the colony into a system that could thrive long-term. They trained young engineers to maintain the energy grids, taught farmers advanced methods of growing food in harsh conditions, and created a council of leaders to make decisions collectively. Leora's years of experience traveling between systems gave her insight into efficiency, innovation, and resource management that was unmatched. One of Leora's first major projects was expanding Zephyria's communication network. She installed a system of satellites in orbit, linking the colony not only to nearby settlements but also to distant trade routes. This allowed the colony to share knowledge, request assistance quickly, and send exports to other planets. Zephyria was no longer isolated. It had become an essential hub in the human sector. Leora also focused on education. She created a school where young settlers could learn engineering, piloting, navigation, and scientific research. She personally taught lessons on problem-solving, critical thinking, and the value of courage. The children listened with wide eyes as she shared her stories of distant worlds, asteroid storms, and rogue systems. They were inspired not just by her achievements but by her humanity, her willingness to persevere, to learn, and to care for others. The villagers watched in awe as Leora implemented new technologies. Energy-efficient habitats that could withstand Zephyria's harsh weather were built. Automated farming drones filled the fields, and water recycling systems provided clean water in abundance. Life on Zephyria was no longer a daily struggle against survival. It had become a thriving, sustainable community. Yet, despite all the progress, Leora never lost sight of the people themselves. She celebrated their achievements, encouraged innovation, and listened to their ideas. She understood that technology alone could not build a strong society. It was the people, their cooperation, and their courage that truly mattered. One afternoon, a group of young engineers approached Leora with a problem. Their new drone system had malfunctioned, threatening the water supply for several farms. Leora examined the system, tracing wires and analyzing data. With calm precision, she identified the error and suggested a solution. The young engineers implemented her instructions and the system began working again. "How did you learn all this?" one of them asked, admiration in his voice. Leora smiled. "By trying, failing, and trying again. And by remembering that every problem has a solution, you just have to find it." Her words became a lesson not just in technology, but in life. The children, the villagers, and even Halen recognized that Leora's true gift was her ability to inspire human excellence. The belief that humans could overcome any challenge with courage, intelligence, and teamwork. As the colony prospered, news of Zephyria's transformation spread across nearby sectors. Traders, settlers, and explorers came to witness the thriving settlement. They marveled at the advanced systems, the organized society, and the thriving farms. Leora shared her knowledge freely, helping other colonies replicate Zephyria's success. During one busy morning, Halen approached her with a small, folded note. "A message from a neighboring system," he said. "They want to learn about your habitat designs." Leora unfolded the note, scanning the technical drawings and requests. "We can help them," she said, her eyes shining with purpose. "If we share what we know, more colonies can thrive. Humans can survive anywhere if we work together." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Leora traveled briefly between nearby systems, teaching settlers how to replicate Zephyria's success. She brought back resources, knowledge, and inspiration. Each visit strengthened the bonds between colonies, creating a network of human settlements that supported one another. Through it all, Leora remained humble. She did not seek glory or praise. Her satisfaction came from seeing others grow, succeed, and thrive. The colony she had once run away from was now the center of a network of human achievement, a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and hope. One evening, as the twin moons of Zephyria rose over the cliffs, Leora stood with Halen and watched the settlement below. Fires burned in hearths, children played in the streets, and the hum of machines filled the air. It was peaceful, vibrant, and alive. "You've done more than I ever imagined possible," Halen said quietly. "Not just for Zephyria, but for all of humanity." Leora shook her head. "I only did what anyone could do. Humans are capable of incredible things. I just had to learn how to trust myself and help others trust themselves too." For a moment, they stood together in silence, letting the quiet of the evening sink in. Leora reflected on her journey, the anger that had driven her away from Zephyria, the dangers she had faced in the stars, the knowledge she had gained, and the people she had inspired. Every step, every challenge had led her to this moment. She realized that true strength was not just about facing danger alone, but about helping others rise alongside you. Humans were capable of surviving the harshest environments, building thriving societies, and reaching for the stars, not because of a single individual, but because of their ability to work together, to teach, and to inspire. Leora turned her gaze to the horizon, toward the stars she had once dreamed of reaching. She had traveled across the universe, faced dangers she had never imagined, and returned to make her home better than she had found it. But her journey was not over. There were still new worlds to explore, new colonies to help, and new challenges to overcome. Yet, for the first time in years, she felt complete. She had returned to the place she had once rejected, not as a child full of anger and pride, but as a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of human resilience. She had proven that humans could thrive, adapt, and grow, even in the harshest conditions. And in that moment, under the twin moons of Zephyria, Leora understood the greatest lesson of all. Humans were not defined by fear, failure, or weakness. They were defined by their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to lift one another toward greatness. The colony below, alive and thriving, was living proof. And Leora, standing beside Halen on the cliffs, smiled, knowing that she had finally found her place, not just in the universe but in the hearts of those she loved. The stars stretched endlessly above, and Leora knew that one day she would travel among them again. But now she also knew that home, the people, the bonds, and the legacy she had built, was the most important star of all. Humanity was not just surviving on Zephyria. Humanity was thriving, and with courage, determination, and the will to help one another, it could reach beyond any limit. Leora turned back to Halen. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything. For teaching me, guiding me, and believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Halen smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "No, Leora, thank you, for coming back, for showing us what humans can truly be. You've reminded us all that we are stronger together, and that nothing can stop us if we keep reaching for the stars." And with that, Leora looked to the horizon once more. The future awaited, bright, vast, and full of possibilities. She had left Zephyria as a girl, returned as a hero, and now stood ready to shape a future for generations to come. The universe was endless, but so was the human spirit, and Leora at last had found her place within both.